Welcome to Standing on the Edge with DJ Randy on BFAM 109.6. Today is Friday, October 22nd, and today we'll be talking about the fact that inflation is upon us on the edge of the coin. We also have the topic of the number two thing you absolutely need to learn during Think Like the Rich. And today's personal story will be, should I just get a job instead? Finally, we'll finish up the show with what would happen if. Now, folks, I am still in need of sponsors. If you love this content and you would like to see the show continue, consider becoming a partial sponsor of Standing on the Edge. I have a GoFundMe page set up, and I share it via Facebook, and it's also labeled, if you go straight to GoFundMe, it's labeled Standing on the Edge, and there are dashes between each of the words, standing dash on dash the dash edge. And if you need the link, just send me an email at joinmeattheedge@gmail.com. Joinmeattheedge@gmail.com. That's double T's, double E's, like usual, at gmail.com. Or you can telephone the station, BFAM 109.6, at 678-383-4378 with your contact information, and they can go ahead and get that to me as well. You are listening to Standing on the Edge. When we come back, it's time for the Edge of the Coin. And welcome back to the show. The Edge of the Coin is brought to you by the CS Media Group. We provide the outstanding talent and you get the extraordinary entertainment. The Edge of the Coin is a segment that shows us a way of opening up our mindsets to allow us to explore both sides of any situation. We're going to jump right into today's topic, which is inflation is upon us. Inflation is upon us. This is a very interesting situation. And for those of you like me that grew up basically in the 1970s, I was born in the late 60s, so I was able to go and witness firsthand in the late 70s how inflation just basically just shot north of everything, up like Mount Everest kind of thing, and really brought our economy to a crashing halt. I mean, I remember having to wait in line for gas when we had to actually have gas rations where you had to go, okay, if you've got a last name that starts with a certain grouping of letters, let's say O to S, then you could only go on a certain day to get gas. You had to go ahead and bring everything you possibly could because you couldn't go back for another week to go ahead and get gas from there. It was nuts. That's basically when food stamps really went ahead and started hitting very hard because there were so many people that needed to go ahead and do that. Today it's called EFT, and it's still a good program for those that need it, but in the late 70s, a lot of people really needed it. And we're pretty much, I think, right about to that point again, just to go ahead and get started. So if you have not been preparing, good luck, because you're going to need it. I mean, for those of you that are finally figuring it out, and I know you're finally figuring it out because I've been saying it for the last year that it's going to be happening and really starting to push hard. And now even the government is saying, oh yes, it's no longer temporary. It is now a full-blown concern. We've got to go ahead and do something about this. After saying for years and years and years, no worries, 2% is great, 2% is great, and we can't even get it up to 2%, so you don't have to worry one bit whatsoever. Well, we shot past that 2% mark according to the government statistics and went basically straight up from there to about 5.5%. Now, that is not stopping there. It's still shooting up higher. Why? Because it comes back to the basics of economics, which is supply and demand. If I hold a lot of stuff and nobody else has got it, that means that there's a lot of people that want what I've got, hopefully. And if that's the case, then I can go ahead and basically write down whatever it is that I want to go ahead and sell you those products at my terms. Now, however, if nobody can get it, it's pretty much done the same thing. It's no longer to the point where people are, or where you're being marked up to find out what you will pay. It's wherever you can find it, that's what you're going to pay for it, and you will go ahead and create bidding wars to do so. This is really how it's working right now. I mean, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, just north of the city, and down in Savannah, which is about a 3.5 hour drive for me right now, the container ships can't get into the port because they're still waiting on the people to actually be able to go ahead and work the port to unload the containers. So I mean, we got basically lines backed up of ships waiting to drop off their stuff. Now, of course, there's Brunswick also, which is just down the street, basically about an hour or so down by driving. But it once again is the same thing. You can't go ahead and unload it there because they don't have the people to unload it. Once you finally get it unloaded, then you need to go ahead and start moving it, shipping it out to other places all around the country here in the United States. Savannah is one of the best ports for that because it's sitting on, number one, a very easy and lucrative trucking route, which goes up to the north, the northeast. It goes up to the Midwest. It goes out to the west. It goes down to Florida. So there's a lot of places it can go ahead and go to from there. It also has a shipping line via train. So the trains do the same thing. They hit the northeast. They hit the northwest. They hit the west and the south and moving on. And the train system, of course, is what we've been relying on for a very long time here in Georgia, basically since the Civil War and before. And it goes pretty much everywhere. So in addition to that, of course, then anybody that happens to come in and wants to go ahead and ship it further by a boat, by going ahead and put it back on another ship and move it around, well, we've got plenty of places we can go ahead and do that. But Savannah is pretty much a straight shot from anywhere. It's almost a straight shot north from the Panama Canal. It's almost a straight shot to the west from the Suez Canal going through the Mediterranean. It's almost a really, really it literally, it is a great place to go ahead and get anything. If somebody wants to come across from Africa, it's just straight across the northwest and bam, right there, and it allows all kinds of things. But like I said, they're backed up. They can't get the ships in fast enough to unload it because they don't have the people working there. What does that mean? That means that now all of these products that are on the ships can't be sold. Because they can't be sold because they can't be shipped to the stores. If they're not in the stores, they can't be sold. That means that wherever you can find them, somehow, some way, in any way, you are now paying exorbitant prices for this. And that is the true form of inflation that I've been talking about for basically now the last year and a half on the radio, and even longer than that in person. So, like I said, the time to prepare was yesterday and before, and I've been warning about preparing for the last year and a half. And if you have not done so, well, welcome to Ship's Creek, so to speak. And I hope you have a paddle because this is going to be a very interesting ride, that's for sure. Now, the next question is this: because we have inflation, what do we do now? Now is basically the second best time to go ahead and get started doing what you were doing before. The big thing that I want you to remember this, and this show, of course, is geared towards small business owners, entrepreneurs, and their investors. Entrepreneurs, listen closely. People that want a side hustle, listen closely. This is the time to go ahead and your last ditch effort, your last window, because the window is closing, to do something about this, okay? If you see a need in your neighborhood, in your community, in your city, in your area, whatever it is, and you can fill that need, do it. Do it right, do it smart, and make some money off of it, okay? There is zero reason why you should not make money during this time. In fact, this is one of those times, literally, where the rich become rich, where the poor can become rich if they do the right things. The rich become even richer doing the same things they've been doing over and over again the whole time, and the super rich become uber rich. I mean, this is literally one of those times right now. What can you do? Like I said, look for a need. Okay, right now, all the weather alerts are telling us that it's going to be a long, cold, hard winter. There's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to be cold. What's going to happen if we get a big hard freeze everywhere? First thing that's going to happen is the power lines are going to get saturated, probably snapped, and boom, there goes power. So, what do? Well, if you happen to have a hugely wooded lot, cut down some of those trees, get the thinner ones out of there, start breaking things up, and sell firewood when the time comes. Because the first freeze, it's now, let's say, right about a week out from November. The first freeze, unless you're in Colorado, is going to be happening in about 3 or 4 weeks. If you cut down the wood now and get it start splitting up like that, then you might be able to have it dry enough in the next month to go ahead and really start selling it. Definitely, you can start selling it in December and January and February when they're going to need it the most. But this is your last chance to go ahead and get that taken care of. If you can get firewood inexpensively that's already seasoned, do it. Stock up, get prepared, and then move on and continue on from there. Because the colder it gets, the more people are going to want it, the higher price it's going to get, so on and so forth. And once again, inflation rises and goes from there. Now you stack that on top of the fact that we're still in certain parts of our country at huge job losses. I mean, in some areas of our country right now, it's up to 15%. Now, of course, the government's statistics are going to tell you differently, but that's because what they do is those particular statistics take only into consideration the fact that the people without jobs have only been without jobs for 6 months. After that 6 months, they go and push them aside and move on from there. And that's how they get around their little statistics going, yeah, things are getting better, things are getting better. But if you look at the long-term statistics, you take into account the people that have been out for over 6 months. In New York City, they've been out for a year and a half in a lot of cases. That's a long time to go ahead and do that. Here in Atlanta, we see tents going ahead and lining up the streets sometimes out on the West End because people are out of houses since they don't have the jobs. It still happens. It's still happening in every big major city. There are some cities, however, where it's completely opposite. Jobs are being boosted like mad. I mean, out in Wyoming, in Idaho, in Montana, certain parts of Montana, in over there in the Northwest, and doing so certain parts of Washington. Most of Washington is not that case, but certain parts of Washington are doing it. A tiny bit of Oregon is doing it. Northern California has certain pockets and areas. Nevada, Utah, all of those areas right in there are literally screaming for people to come and get jobs. They've got jobs waiting, but people aren't moving there for whatever reason. Now, that, of course, is also in flux because a lot of people have just moved into Idaho. A lot of people have just moved into Nevada. A lot of people have just moved into uh, um, what's the other one? Wyoming. Wyoming was a big one where people really massively flocked into, although it's still considered the least populated state that we have here in the United States. So there's ways to get around this, but you've got to make the decision now to do something about it and understand that everywhere you go, there's going to be a trade-off of something. Okay, if you want to go and get yourself a job and you move to Idaho, great, fabulous, well done. If you're moving from Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, anywhere in the Southeast, the first thing you got to remember is you got a 2-day hard drive to get there. Secondly, winter's already on them. They're starting up their winter right now and have been for the last 3, 4 weeks. Colorado got their first real snow of 7 inches a month ago. These things happen, so you've got to be prepared for that, okay? If you want a job and you want to go out there and you get it, great, go ahead and do so. You're probably going to go ahead and pay a little more money trying to find a place to go ahead and rent because it's wintertime and people want to go ahead and get and stay warm and not move out. That's just always the case. Inflation's on us. There's nothing we can do about that right now except to go ahead and use what we've got as we've got and use it for our own little personal economy and take the inflation that's bad outside and make it good in terms of us, because then we can go ahead and turn around and really start creating things. You don't necessarily even have to worry about selling it. You can barter for other things that you need to go ahead and do. And I went ahead and mentioned this a year and a half ago also. If you've got a ton of firewood, people are going to need it, and you need structures to go ahead and make bread, like flour, sugar, and eggs. You need all those things. Trade it off. Go ahead and grab it. That's a fabulous way to go ahead and do it. People will pay gasoline for it if they want to. Gasoline is going to be another one of those crisis issues here shortly. Prices are already jumping up. From what I understand, out on the West Coast, it's already over $5 a gallon right now, because the oil pipelines are not flowing as quickly and as easily as they should be, and as they were even a year ago from now. Um, Gas out here in Atlanta has just basically started creeping back up again. On the Northwest, it's just over $3 a gallon. In the city itself, is pushing $4 a gallon. It's still, it's getting up there. So gasoline is going to be one of those things that people are going to go ahead and need. Okay, and as we get further and further into this, then we're going to have to really start worrying about hard currency. Bullets are going to be a big thing in the major cities because there's going to be a lot of unrest. So bullets are going to be something that they're going to go ahead and start taking. I would imagine anyway, they're going to go ahead and start taking payment for what you've got. I would certainly be happy to go ahead and exchange bullets, as long as they work and are not wet, and exchange them for other firewood or some things that I've got from there as well, that I can go ahead and help you out. Although most of my information, I've been trying to help you out for the last year or so to go ahead and do it, because that way you can use the knowledge that I've got for yourself. All right, I am starting up a new show and I'm looking for new ideas. I want to hear from you to find out what you would like to see. Just send me an email to joinmeattheedge@gmail.com. That's double T's, double E's. Joinmeattheedge@gmail.com with your choices. Let me know what you want to hear. The most popular choices are going to win. We're almost over. I'm going to go ahead and keep on taking ideas through October and let you know next week on the 28th. That'll be on Thursday. Once again, that email is joinmeattheedge@gmail.com. You are listening to Standing on the Edge. When we come back, it's time to think like the rich. And welcome back to the show. Think Like the Rich is brought to you by Hers Decadence, offering luxurious refreshment for your body inside and out. You need to treat your body and that of your lover to a bit of luxury from Hers. You can find out what's available by emailing Heather at hersdecadence@gmail.com. Think Like the Rich is a segment designed to help everyone think past their circumstances and encourage a different course of action. Today's topic for Think Like the Rich is the number 2 thing that you absolutely need to learn. The number 2 thing that you absolutely need to learn. Now, I went ahead and started by saying number 1 thing last week, which was you need to learn to sell. Everybody sells. Everybody sells. And I've been telling you that for years as well. Excuse me. Everybody knows how to sell. So what's the number 2 thing that you need to go ahead and learn how to do? Well, the number 2 thing is you need to learn to market yourself effectively. Everybody markets themselves also. Okay, it's actually technically a part of sales. Sales and marketing go together. If you were to go ahead and look in, well, the way that I like to go ahead and describe it is this: you've got sales on top of marketing. Okay, sales on top of marketing. You've got to be able to market something in order to go ahead and get sales to do it. And your sales are going to be divided by your marketing, because if you want so much in sales, you've got to make sure you have so much in marketing, and it's not necessarily equal. There's a lot of different equations you can go ahead and use. For those of you that are math geeks, a lot of different equations you can go ahead and do to equal this. Okay, sometimes depending on where you go, it's going to be one marketing thing to one sale, one market to one sale, and it's a nice even factor, 1 to 1, and that's a great even trade-off right there. If you're doing 1 to 1, then you're breaking even, and that's excellent. Most of the time, for those of you that are just starting and are new to this, then you're going to find that it's more than just that. You're going to have to market yourself to 7, 8, 9, 10 people to get that one. A 10-to-1 ratio. Or you're getting 1/10 of what it is that you want to go ahead and do. All right, and that is normal. Normal 10-to-1 ratio. Yes, it is. The getting started and you've never done it before, that's where it really starts hitting home for many people. Why? Because they don't realize that if you're just brand new starting out, you've never ever done it before, there are times when you're going to have to go ahead and market yourself as an unknown to at least 100 people to get one sale. 100 to 1. That's a horrible ratio, but that's what happens if you don't know what you're doing. Now, that's why I'm saying the number 2 thing you need to learn is marketing. Marketing is not just putting your name out there. It's not hanging up your shingle from the front of your door saying, "Hey, I got this for sale." That could be a small part of it. If you go ahead and listen to your professors at school, they'll tell you, well, that's really all you have to do is you have to go ahead and take your sign, hang it up, and people know you're open for business. Unfortunately, it just does not work as well that way. Why? Because that's considered bringing in foot traffic. You want the people walking by your store and to go ahead and draw them in. Well, that's great if you happen to place your store smack dab in the middle of a crowded area where people are going, let's say you're going to have 1,000 people walk by every single day, twice a day, going past your store, 1,000 people going forward, 1,000 people going back to their cars, and they're going to go ahead and see it. Well, that's a nice little draw for foot traffic. But once again, you are limiting yourself to 1,000 people. 1,000 people. They probably will not come in more than once that day. Sometimes they will, but definitely don't count on it, okay? But out of those 1,000 people that are walking by, they might want what you've got for sale. They might need what you've got for sale. But most of the time, they're just walking by going, oh, that looks nice. Maybe one day I'll pick that up. And it just happens to be that way. So in reality, even with the foot traffic of 1,000 people a day walking by twice by your shop, out of the foot traffic, you're probably looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of around 50 people. 50 people to come in. Now that's a 0.5% return on your marketing. 0.5%. Not very nice, is it? No. So you need to do other things. Well, right now, people go ahead and start up their businesses and they go, okay, well, I don't have a lot of money to go ahead and do this, so we're going to take this nice and short. We're going to bootstrap our way up and we're going to go ahead and take care of things in that respect. Now, that's great also. Okay, so in addition to hanging out your shingle along the side and showing that you are open for business, now you're going to go ahead and use the free resources, right? You go ahead and do your Instagram marketing. You go ahead and do your Facebook marketing. You do your YouTube marketing. You do you talk to your friends and your family and go ahead and get them involved. And all it does is it requires time. Time's the big thing. You can go ahead and market yourself on Craigslist, on the certain marketplaces that are out there that I don't know about that will do it. Angie's List might be able to take care of you from there. There's a lot of free resources, and these are great things to do. Great things to do. But once again, you're marketing to a lot of people that might or might not need or want what you've got. Let's go ahead and take a look and say you're selling firewood, okay? And you're selling firewood in front of a forest. Who wants firewood for sale when they've got a whole 18 acres they can go ahead and chop down for themselves? It's probably not the best use of what you've got from there, okay? But if you go ahead and take that same firewood, you've chopped it down in the forest, and you move your shop to in front of a stone quarry, you're probably going to go ahead and sell hand over fist every single day for people that want firewood to go ahead and heat up that quarry, or at least go ahead and make a fire in front of the quarry that's going to make it nice and warm while they're working in front of that cold stone. So that's, of course, where you want to go ahead and do. You want to put yourself in the best position possible. Okay. Now, going along that vein, along that thread right there, putting yourself in the best position possible also means that you're going to have to think. 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 And so many people hate to do this. It's one of the hardest things to do, and most people would rather have somebody else think for them and tell them what to do. Okay? Now, this is not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea at all. If you know somebody that is able to go ahead and solve your problem and it leaves you free to do something else important, then by all means, pay them for what they know. But you've got to be able to make sure you can use that knowledge and or what it is that they're selling in order to go ahead and help you create a better life for yourself. Now, I've been reading a lot of sales and marketing books recently. I mean, over the course of the last 6 months, I've probably gone over about 20 or so books. I've got several of them on my bookcase that I've collected throughout the years. So, one of the most recent ones that I've done is called Marketing to the Affluent. And I went ahead and purchased this book. And believe it or not, this book was actually written in 1981. But the principles still remain the same. The biggest one is that, first and foremost, you have to remember that not everything that glitters is gold. The people that look like they are $1 million, they've got several $1 million sitting in the bank. The ones that drive the flashy, fancy cars that are walking around in the Brooks Brothers and or tailored suits, the ones that are living in the 700,000, 800,000, $1 million homes, the ones that are driving around in the Rolls Royces and the Ferraris and the Porsches and the Jaguars and things like that, believe it or not. And this, I'm telling you this right now, in 1980 statistics, and I will go ahead and account it for inflation, okay? In 1980 statistics, the people that would drive those type of vehicles, dress in that type of clothes, wear those type were the expensive Rolex watches for the most part, not always, but for the most part, that would go ahead and live in the upper class type neighborhoods, so to speak, made less than $70,000 a year. $70,000 a year. That's before taxes. Now, in today's terms, that would be $210,000. So roughly a bunch of those people are making less than $200,000 a year. Now that sounds like it's a lot. It does. But the $200,000 is before taxes. It is before taxes. Assuming that because you made more than $110,000 per person, you're now in the top tax bracket of the federal government. Forget the state, but the federal government is putting you in the top tax bracket. That means that they are now charging you a minimum of 40% in taxes. So out of that $200,000, you're already having $80,000 taken straight away. $80,000. That leaves you with $120,000 left afterwards. Okay? And $120,000 certainly is comfortable, but it is nowhere near affluent whatsoever. And then, of course, they've got to go ahead and pay, once again, the car bill, the school bill, because chances are their kids are going to some sort of private school. They have to go ahead and pay for food and the utilities. Just like everybody else, they have to go ahead and pay for their kids' activities that are going ahead and doing that. They got the same thing. They've got the same issues, the same problems as everybody else. But they've got it now in a higher tax bracket, and therefore they're visiting other things. Now, of course, they need to look nice, so they want to go ahead and go to certain better restaurants. They want to go ahead and go to not just those restaurants. They want to go ahead and also make sure that they are sending their kids to the better schools. So they're looking for that. How you doing, Lee? They want to go ahead and make sure that they're wearing the nicer clothes so they can go ahead and look that way and attract other things. Okay. Once again, $210,000. That's not a lot of money, but that's what most people think are the millionaires. Now, here's the big secret. Millionaires are not going to tell you. They're not going to show you. And they're certainly not going to go ahead and let the cat out of the bag in any single way possible, unless you are a good friend of them, that they have a lot of money. Why? Because they're smart. They are smart in this. They want to make sure that those people that are out there that they know and are in their little circle of secrecy can go ahead and continue helping them along doing what they need to do. Now, in the 1980s, if you took somebody that actually went ahead and had an unrealized net worth of $1 million, realized meaning after the taxes, after what they went ahead and collected in income and so on and so forth, they only made around $50,000 to $60,000. Same thing, okay, $50,000 to $60,000. But their businesses were worth in excess of $150,000. Their real estate was worth in excess of $150,000. Their supplies that they had, the manufacturing, whatever it was that they needed, the equipment they had in their businesses was worth in excess of $150,000. And the sales that they got in their businesses was over $150,000 every single year. You put all that together, and that net worth definitely skyrocketed them up to $1 million from there. And the secret that they know of, which I've been telling you for months and months and months, almost a year and a half now, is that if you need to do something, get the business to pay for it. If you can figure out a way to go ahead and make it a legal business expense, you're gonna pay the money anyway, but now because the business is paid for it, they are able to go ahead and purchase it, and you can still use it, consume it, do whatever you need to with it in your own personal life, as long as the business gets the first part of it and moving on from there. And that's the biggest secret of the rich right there. Now, the rich, like I said, are not going to show you. They're not going to tell you. They're not going to go ahead and advertise the fact that I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich. Come and get to me. Why? Because they know that the moment they do that, everybody and their brother is going to come along and go ahead and try to take their little piece of the pie, and sometimes their big piece of the pie in doing so. They don't want that to happen. So the first thing they do is they go ahead and lay low. They're going to be nice and easy and calm and laid back and rested. And they're going to go ahead and wear something along the lines of a Seiko watch, probably about $100 or a little less. Maybe a Timex watch, something that's a little bit better, but not quite as expensive as a Seiko. They're going to go ahead and drive cars such as Toyotas and Chevrolets and the non-luxury vehicles that actually will work. Your Ford F-150s might be one of those good big trucks that they can go ahead and do. They're going to do things that are nice, sturdy, they're going to last for a long time, and they're going to be useful for a very long time as well. They want to go ahead and do that. They're not going to be driving around most of the time in your Porsches, your Lexuses, your Mercedes-Benz. Now, Mercedes and Lexus actually have been getting an uptick in their sales for people like that are a little more affluent than the others, so that you can go ahead and kind of take with a grain of salt right there. But most of your business people are going to be they're going to be driving practical vehicles. They might be driving a Volvo, they might be driving a Chevrolet, a Cadillac, they might be driving a Lincoln. If they want to get a little more luxurious, they might be driving a Lexus. They're probably driving something such as a Ford Edge or an F-150, or if you're into your Chevrolets, your Chevy trucks and your Dodge trucks and so on and so forth, going from there. Toyotas are a big, big thing among the affluent because they last forever. Hondas are great because they last forever. But you're not going to find a lot of affluent people driving Range Rovers. Very interesting. You're not going to see them driving or walking around in their $1,000 well-tailored cut suits, individually tailored. You might be able to go, they might go ahead and get one, but 9 times out of 10, they're going to go ahead and buy it off the rack at places like the Men's Warehouse or Joseph A. Bank or something of that nature. Sometimes even your Walmart, they might go ahead and do. Unlikely, but sometimes they might do it. They want something that's going to go ahead and look good, but is not super flashy, not super expensive, that something that they can go ahead and use day after day after day and still be able to go ahead and make it work for them. The watches, like I said, can be Seikos or Timexes. The shoes, once again, they get them at department stores most of the time. They don't necessarily go to the Gap or one of the other higher places, Banana Republic or some of the other Florsheim shoes, that will go ahead and sell the top of the line shoes, or the shoe makers that will go ahead and tailor for them. Now, that's also another key thing because sometimes, a lot of times, the shoe makers, I forget what they're called right now, cobblers, I guess is what it is. Um, if they are marketing well, they will go ahead and market a very sturdy, decent shoe to go ahead and sell to these people that really, really looks good and lasts for a long time and is not that expensive. So that again is one of those things that you have to kind of keep an eye out for. But that's the interesting thing. Like I said, is that the affluent will not advertise this. They're not going to be what you would expect because you would think they'd be out there driving their Jaguars and Porsches and Mercedes and Ferraris and their Maseratis, and that's not necessarily the case. You would think they're out there going ahead and flashing out their Rolexes and their Omegas and their other flashy timepieces, and that's not necessarily the case. You might be thinking they're out there dressed in Louis Vuitton and the Gap. Are you going from the Gap? Not Gap. What's the other one? Um, Banana Republic, I guess. Or anyway, they're the big magazine type stuff that you would see people going ahead and riding around or walking around in their Brooks Brothers suits and things of that nature. No, it doesn't work that way. They're out there, they're dressed casually, comfortably, and professionally in off the rack stuff that people normally would not think you would have a lot of money. They're driving the cars that people would think are not associated with a lot of money. They're wearing the timepieces and the shoes and the ties for people that are not associated with a lot of money. That's the cool thing about it. So if you know exactly where to go ahead and look, you're going to set yourself up to go ahead and market to the best people possible from there. You are listening to Standing on the Edge. When we come back, it's time for Tales from the Edge here on BFAM 109.6. Welcome back to the show. Tales from the Edge is brought to you by the HRS Foundation. Investing in future generations to ensure a better tomorrow. Tales from the Edge is a shared personal example of people and situations that I've experienced during my path to growing wealthy. Today's story is, should I just get a job instead? Should I just get a job instead? Now, this is going to be one of those things where you're going to have, as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, as somebody that's trying to go ahead and break from one tax bracket to the next tax bracket and make it better for yourself, you're going to always come back to this particular thing. And it's always going to be, well, I don't have the work. I don't have the people buying from me. I don't have the people that are out there that I know are out there that want to go ahead and spend the money. They've got their money. I just can't find them. And I've been walking around and walking around, and I'm tired, and my feet hurt, and I'm out of gas, and I don't have any money for food and stuff like that. And you're always in the back of your mind, constantly having that same old thought that's been drilled into us since we were kids, which is go out and get a job. Go out and get a job. And so today's story is, should I just go ahead and get a job? I mean, there's so many things that are going on, and things are horrible, and the places are out there, and there are jobs, but they're usually crappy jobs, and there's some of the stuff that's going on out there, and inflation's getting skyrocketing, and gas is getting higher, and I just don't have the money. Well, guess what? That's going to be the same no matter where you go. That will be the same no matter where you go. Why? Because it's difficult to break through to the other side, as the song says. Break on through to the other side. It is difficult to do so. But once you get there, you definitely won't want to go back. However, if you stop trying to break through, if you stop trying to break through, it gets worse. It is not a case of, well, I can stop here and always come back to what I did before again. It does not work that way. It doesn't work that way. Think of it this way, okay? The inmate in a prison that's trying to go ahead and break out of that prison, he wants to exploit the weaknesses. He wants to exploit the weaknesses. And so he goes ahead and he gets his, we'll just say he finds his little knife or something or else, and he goes ahead and starts digging at the wall, and he starts going ahead and pouching and making a hole and so on and so forth. And he goes ahead and he gets tired and he gets sloppy and he starts leaving trails and crumbs of powder left all in his cell because he didn't clean up as good as he could have, as he would have, as he should have, and so on and so forth. And therefore, when they make a prison inspection or a cell inspection, the warden and or the guards come along and they say, oh, "What is this? What's going on?" And they really start looking deeper. And boom! Next thing you know, they found the hole. Well, does this mean that they go, "Oh, that's okay. We're just going to go ahead and patch this up and let you go"? No, it doesn't. They move that prisoner out of that cell, place him in another cell that's more difficult to get to than where he's at right there. They go ahead and redo the whole wall and or cell itself to make sure that the next person in there can't do the exact same thing, and it makes it harder. It makes it harder. You cannot just pick up where you left off. If you stop trying to break through, you will have to start over again from the beginning, and sometimes in a harder area. That's the other big thing. Remember, so when you hear that little message that says, "I need a job. I need to go ahead and really go ahead. I really need the money. I need to go out and I need to do something that's going to go ahead and get me some money." Well, okay, you know what? If that's the case, then pick up a side hustle. If you need to pick up a job, but don't stop pushing. Don't stop pushing at all. Don't rely on that job, okay? Why? Because first and foremost, number one, you're not guaranteed that that job will be there forever. Secondly, you're using up more of your time that you've got for a finite amount of money. You can only earn so much money during that time. And finally, the worst part about it is that it takes time away from what you would have done trying to search for the people to market to get your business moving and going and working well for you. All of those are strikes against you. It makes it harder. For what? For a measly $15 an hour that you might be able to work a 4 hour, 5 hour, 6 hour day? And if you go ahead and get lucky and you work a 8 or 10 hour day at $15 to $20 an hour, and there are some jobs that will go ahead and do that, then once again, you're taking away from what you did before. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and use this in my terms because as a DJ and as a host, I go ahead and depend on people to go ahead and pay me money while I'm doing my shows. And I typically get, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag on this one here, I typically start off about $75 an hour. $75 an hour and then move up from there. Now, of course, depending on what I'm doing, it might take a little bit more, a little bit less, and it's right around there for the most part, okay? But because of that, if I then take into consideration the preparation and um, the gas time going to and from, and the marketing to the places and trying to get there, and so on and so forth, on a regular basis, that actually brings it down to roughly about $20 to $25 an hour after everything is said and done, because I have to go ahead and include all of that together. Now, that's still not a bad price. That's not a bad wage at all. But if I go ahead and say, well, okay, this is great. I'm making $20 to $25 an hour, but I'm only working 20 hours a week, then now all of a sudden you're thinking to yourself, well, okay, I've still got bills to pay. I need to go ahead and try to, maybe I should just go ahead and get a job at Amazon. Maybe I should just go ahead and get one of those. They're hiring drivers and they want to go ahead and start them off at $15, $16, $17 an hour. The worst part about that is that you have to dedicate 10 hours a day, 10 hours a day to go ahead and get your route done. Now, out of a 24-hour day, that's a long time. That's almost half of your physical day right there. And most of the time, it's more than what most people would work. So when they get off from doing that, they are tired. They are drained. They don't want to go and do something else. Instead, my suggestion would be just keep on plugging. Yeah, it might mean that you have to go hungry for a day. It might mean that you have to go ahead and walk around because you don't have the gas. It might mean that you got to go ahead and use your cell phone that I don't like to go ahead and use most of the time, but you got to go ahead and do it to be able to talk to people, to get the marketing out there so people know that you're there and want you and go ahead and learn to like you and therefore start to contract your businesses. And once they do that, then it becomes easier to do the next one, and you do it again and it becomes easier to do the next one. Once you break through and you understand the success that you're having, it becomes so much simpler, especially if you can go ahead and put yourself in a position where you are talking to the right people and you're trying to go ahead and offer them the product that they need, not what you have necessarily to sell, but what they need. And then you're going ahead and putting it at a price point where they are willing to go ahead and look at it. And don't forget, if you're trying to go ahead and market yourself to the affluent and you're going ahead and selling firewood at 50 cents a piece, they're not going to like that. They're not going to want that. Not when they can go down the road and go ahead and get the same thing and have somebody else drive it to them for 50 cents a piece. No, that's not going to happen at all. But if you're going ahead and you are selling insurance services, or you're selling trucks, or you're selling something that they would want for their business, wow, you might be able to go ahead and do that all day long, not just to them, but to their friends, to their neighbors, to their other family, their other business co-workers, their family members, so on and so forth. There's all kinds of things you can go ahead and do if you bring yourself into the right place. I want you to remember that. So the next time you go ahead and start thinking, should I just go ahead and get a job instead? I'm going to go ahead and say no. No, keep pushing. Yeah, it's going to be hard, but once you break through, wow, that's going to be the best thing you possibly can go ahead and do. You are listening to Standing on the Edge. When we come back, it's time to close out the show with What Would Happen If here on BFAM 109.6. Welcome back to the show. Think Like the Rich. Sorry, we're not on Think Like the Rich. What Would Happen If is brought to you by myself. Don't forget, I'm still looking for sponsors. If you want to be a partial sponsor, go ahead and take a look at my GoFundMe page. It's labeled Standing on the Edge, dashes between the words. And I want you to go ahead and remember you can call the station also at, let me find that number, you can send me a text to 470-554-2134. You can send an email to joinme@theedge@gmail.com. Excuse me. And you can go ahead and telephone the station at, let me get that number again, I apologize, 678-383-4378. Once again, that's 678-383-4378. And they can go ahead and get you linked up with me, and I can go ahead and talk to you more about that. Today's topic for What Would Happen If is follow the money. Follow the money. Now, I went ahead and did a lot of this not a lot of this, but I started talking about this in the last segment that we were talking about. Follow the money. In fact, I went ahead and alluded to this in several segments as well also. But here's the big thing that a lot of people don't realize. They think, okay, well, we'll follow the money. That means we're going to go ahead and find out what the rich people are doing and where they're eating and what they like and what they don't like and so on and so forth. And so they start looking around for the actors, the actresses, the people that are driving these $150, $200, $300,000 cars and wearing the $1,000 suits and the $700 neckties and the $300 and $400 and $500 watches and up and up and up and up. And they're wearing the $500 shoes, and they're going ahead and living in the $800,000 neighborhoods. Those are all the wrong places. That's not following the money, because most of the time when it's all said and done, unless they happen to have just gotten a commission, they're sitting on probably less than $1,000 in the bank in savings. They're probably sitting with less than $300 left to be able to spend on anything, and therefore it's not going to be conducive to you and what you need or want to go ahead and do. Follow the money. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, first and foremost, once again, like I said, the affluent are not going to advertise what they are. They're not going to say, hey, I've got $10 million in net worth sitting back here behind me, all in real estate and timber on my land. They're not going to tell you that. They're not going to say, hey, I've got 6 businesses over there. Each of them are making less than $80,000 a year in sales, but combining them together, they're worth $800,000. They're not going to tell you that they've got land that was gifted to them in three states out of the way, and they're just going ahead and letting it sit right there so they can go ahead and visit it once or twice a year as a vacation kind of thing. They're not going to tell you these things, not until you get to know them. Once you go ahead and get to know them, you get them to like you get them to trust you, then they're going to go ahead and slip little details, little things that unless you're listening hard for, you're not going to realize and make the connection between the two. Now, here's the first thing that I like to listen to. Always. Always what I want to go ahead and listen to, because the first clue that I find is that number one, most of the time, the people that are really truly affluent have their own business. They have their own business. And if it is super successful, they've had it for more than 5 years. Guess what? Most of the time, that is not going to be a restaurant. It's not going to be a hotel. It's not going to be a major corporation most of the time. Most of the time, it's something interesting and something small that you would never, ever, ever, ever have thought about, okay? A tool and die company, a welding supply company that's not Northern Tool. I mean, like the little mom and pop type shop, okay? They'll have their own painting business. They'll have their own handyman service. They'll have all these other things that you never, ever, ever would have thought about and go, but that's dirty. That's gross. That's yucky. Nobody would want to go ahead and do that. And the only people that go ahead and buy things from them are the people that go ahead and use the supplies, such as the welders and the crane operators and so on and so forth. But guess what? There are other people as well that use those things also. There are the building superintendents that go ahead and purchase those items. They are the people that own the skyscrapers, or at least are contracted for building the skyscrapers and the new buildings. They're contracted out for going ahead and paving roads and doing things of that nature. So you don't want to go ahead and find the people that are buying the supplies. You want to look for the people that are selling the supplies and market those sellers. Look for the dirty ones. Look for the people that are, they're not in clean money. They're not wearing the $1,000 neckties and the Brooks Brothers suits and the $600 shirts and so on. They're probably out there in a pair of dirty jeans with gloves on that have got holes in them, and they've got little ball caps happening around, and they're wearing a pair of sneakers or work steel-toed boots, and they're driving the Ford F-150 truck, or in my friend Lee's case, the Chevrolet truck. In any case, it's the hidden money that you're looking for. And if you follow the clues, follow the money, that's where you really can go ahead and start getting your connections. Once you've got the connections, Then you go ahead and start selling what it is that they need. Okay? And what is it they need? Well, the person that owns their own company that has it tied up, has most of their money tied up into the company, is probably going to need sooner or later a new truck. They're probably going to need sooner or later new tools. They're probably going to need sooner or later generators to go ahead and help run the business. They're probably going to need sooner or later tires that are getting onto the trucks themselves. They're probably going to need later on items such as a new place to put their money, better banking. They will probably need insurance of certain types for those companies. There's all kinds of things that you can go ahead and do selling to the owner of that company. And if you go ahead and go straight to the owner itself, 9 times out of 10, you're going to find that nobody else is doing the same thing. And you've got a clear shot, wham, at making great sales. And very possibly, if they like you enough, then you can go ahead and be contracted as their preferred supplier. This is a fantastic place to be. Trust me, a fantastic place to be. Follow the money. If you follow the money, you're going to find the people that are hiding in plain sight, as I've been telling you for the last year and a half. You're going to find the people out there that are willing to go ahead and purchase the stuff that they need, as opposed to the stuff that some people think that they want. And you'll be able to put yourself in a position not just for one sale, but for multiple sales, because they know other people. That's the marketing secret right there. Follow the money. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to find those people. That's up to you to figure out, because if I were to hand that to you on a silver platter, you wouldn't do anything with it. You wouldn't. I need you to think. I need you to take action. I need you to do something. And therefore, you can join me on the edge. You've been listening to Standing on the Edge. Here's a shout out to my sponsors. They are DJR Entertainment, the CS Media Group, Hers Decadence, and the HRS Foundations. My next show is going to be next Thursday, October 28th at noon, where I'm going to go ahead and tell you what the number one item for the new show that I'm looking to go ahead and start up will be. But until then, I want you to remember, expand your awareness. Think of something every day to help you on your path, and hopefully soon I'll see you joining me on the edge. Have a great weekend.